She had no choice. No money, no family, no home, and worst of all, no time. Her baby was coming. Soon. The contractions weren't just whispers anymore. They were screams, tearing through her body like thunder. Every step she took felt like fire, her legs weak, her breath ragged. She had knocked on doors before, dozens, maybe hundreds. Every single one had slammed in her face. But this was her last chance. Her shaking hands clutched her belly, as if she could somehow shield her child from the cruel world that had already abandoned them both. She stumbled down the street, past the rows of towering mansions, the kind where people lived in luxuries so obscene. They probably had gold-plated forks just to eat a salad. And then, there it was, the biggest one of them all. A palace. No, not a house. Not even a mansion. A goddamn kingdom behind iron gates, with lights so bright they made the night feel like midday. She had nothing. He had everything. What were the odds he would even look at her, let alone help? But when you're desperate, when you're literally about to collapse on the pavement with a baby fighting to be born, you don't think, you act. She dragged herself to the massive wooden doors, raised a trembling fist, and knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, harder this time. Her knuckles stung, but she didn't care. Because if this door didn't open, she would die right there on that marble doorstep, and her child, her innocent unborn child, would die with her. Still nothing. And then, just as she was about to break, just as she was about to scream to the heavens, demanding to know why the world was so damn cruel, the door creaked open, and standing there was him, the Arab millionaire, tall, dressed in silk, a man whose very presence screamed power. His eyes, cold, sharp, the kind of gaze that made people tremble. His expression was unreadable, like he had seen it all before and couldn't be bothered to care. And in that moment, Aisha knew this was it. This man could save her, or he could destroy her. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Because what do you even say when you're standing at the mercy of someone who has everything, when you yourself have nothing? But before she could even plead, before she could even beg, he stepped forward. And what he did next? Oh, you're not ready for this. Because in the next few minutes, everything, her fate, her child's future, even this man's soul, was about to change forever. And if you think you know what happens next, trust me, you have no idea. She didn't remember the last time she had a warm meal. She didn't remember the last time she had slept without fear. She didn't even remember what it felt like to be safe. But what she did remember, clear as day, was the moment she lost everything. Aisha wasn't always like this. She had dreams once, a home, a life, a future. But all of that had been ripped away in a single cruel twist of fate. Abandoned, betrayed, left to fend for herself when she was at her weakest. No money, no family, nowhere to go. And worse, she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the tiny life growing inside her, a child she had sworn she would protect at any cost. But the cost was high, too high. The streets had been her prison for weeks. She had walked until her feet bled, begged until her throat was raw. People passed her like she was invisible. No, worse than invisible, like she was filth, like she wasn't even human. And the hunger? It wasn't just in her stomach anymore. It was in her bones, her soul, gnawing away at whatever was left of her strength. And yet, she kept going. Because she had to. Because giving up meant letting her baby slip away before they even had a chance to live. She knocked on doors, one after another, each time hoping, each time praying, and each time rejected. Faces turned away, cold words, pitying looks, doors slamming in her face before she could even finish speaking. No handouts here. Try a shelter. Not my problem. But Aisha didn't need pity. She needed help. Real help. And no one was willing to give it. Until now. Because as she stood in front of the massive palace, staring at the enormous doors that could lead to salvation or to more rejection, she felt something different, a shift in the air, a feeling in her gut. This, this was her last chance. If this door didn't open, she wouldn't survive another night. And her baby wouldn't survive either. So she did what she had done 100 times before. She lifted her fist and knocked. One knock, no answer. Two knocks, silence. Three knocks, nothing but the sound of the wind. Her knees buckled, tears burned at the edges of her eyes. Was this it? Was this how it ended? And then, click, the door opened. Aisha froze, because standing there, framed by golden chandeliers and marble floors, was the last person she ever expected to answer. The millionaire's initial reaction. He wasn't what she expected, not at all. For one, he was younger than she thought he'd be, maybe mid-30s, sharp jawline, dark, piercing eyes. The kind of man who looked like he had never known struggle, never felt hunger, never had to wonder where his next meal was coming from. He wore a silk robe, casual yet commanding, like someone who didn't need to prove his wealth. His presence alone did that. His watch? Probably worth more than what Aisha had made in her entire lifetime. His cologne, the kind you smelled once and never forgot. But it wasn't the wealth that made her nervous. It was his expression, cold, calculated, like he was sizing her up, judging, deciding. And in that moment, she was certain. This was another mistake, another rejection waiting to happen. What do you want? His voice was deep, controlled, not kind, not cruel, just detached. Aisha's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She could barely breathe, let alone speak. The weight of everything, her exhaustion, her hunger, her fear, it was all crashing down at once. And this man? He was staring at her like she was nothing but a nuisance on his doorstep. Seconds passed. The silence stretched between them. Then he moved. For a moment she thought, no, she knew. He was about to slam the door in her face, just like all the others, just like everyone else who had looked at her and decided she wasn't worth their time. Her stomach twisted. Her body braced for the sound of rejection. But instead, he stepped aside. Come in. Wait, what? Aisha blinked. Had she heard that right? Had he actually invited her in? Her legs wobbled, her mind raced. Was this a trick? A cruel joke? But his expression didn't change. No kindness, no sympathy, just a simple expectation that she would walk through the door. And after weeks of being ignored, hated, discarded, someone had finally said yes. She didn't hesitate. She couldn't. She stepped inside. And the moment she did, she felt it. Warmth. Real warmth. The kind that wrapped around her like a soft blanket, chasing away the bone-deep chill that had clung to her for so long. The air smelled of jasmine and cinnamon, rich and intoxicating. The floor beneath her feet, polished marble, cool against her aching soles. This was another world, a world she had never been a part of, a world she had no right to be in. And yet, here she was. He closed the door behind her. The sound echoed through the vast hall. She turned to face him, heart pounding. And then, the questions began. Who are you? Why are you here? And why should I care? The last question stung, more than she expected, because it wasn't just a question, it was a challenge, a test. He wasn't offering her kindness, he wasn't offering her safety, he was offering her a chance to explain why she mattered. And if she failed, he'd throw her back into the cold without a second thought. Aisha swallowed hard. This was it, her one shot, and she had to make it count. So she took a breath, lifted her chin, looked him dead in the eye. And she told him the truth. Every heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, soul-crushing piece of it. And what he did next would shock them both. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Aisha could hear the sound of her own breathing, shallow, uneven. Her hands trembled as she clutched her belly, trying to keep steady. But inside, oh, inside she was breaking. She had told him everything, every painful, gut-wrenching truth, how she had been left to fend for herself, how she had begged, pleaded, fought to survive, how she had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, how she was carrying a child who, in just a few weeks, would enter this world with nothing. And now, she waited. The Arab millionaire stood before her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. His dark eyes studied her, sharp as a blade, dissecting every word she had just spoken. A man like him, he was used to seeing desperation, used to people begging at his feet, clawing for scraps of his wealth. But this was different. This woman, she wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for luxury. She was asking for a chance. A chance. And that was what made him hesitate. Seconds passed like hours. The weight of his silence crushed her, and just as she thought, just as she knew, he was about to turn away, to dismiss her like all the rest. He spoke, "You're lying." The words hit like a slap. Aisha's breath caught in her throat. What? This story, it's a lie." His voice was calm, too calm. He stepped closer, his towering frame making her feel small, insignificant. "No one ends up on my doorstep by accident. So tell me, why are you really here?" Aisha's mind spun. Was he serious? Did he really think? "I told you the truth," she snapped, her voice cracking under the weight of frustration, exhaustion, fear. "Why would I lie? Look at me. I have nothing." For the first time since opening the door, something flickered in his gaze. Something unreadable. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples, as if trying to piece together a puzzle that didn't make sense. And then, without warning, he turned and walked away. What the hell? Aisha stood frozen. Was this it? Was he just going to leave her standing there? Was this all just some cruel game to him? Her stomach clenched, panic rising in her chest. She couldn't let this slip away, not after everything. "Please," she called after him. "I'm begging you." But he didn't stop. He didn't even look back. He just disappeared into the vastness of his mansion, leaving her standing there, lost. And then a moment later, he returned. But he wasn't alone. Behind him was a woman, older, elegant, wrapped in a silk shawl, with warm, wise eyes that studied Aisha with something she hadn't seen in weeks: kindness. "Come with me, child," the woman said softly. Aisha hesitated. Who was she? What was happening? The millionaire crossed his arms again, watching her reaction closely. "You need help," he said, his tone almost reluctant. "She will give it to you." And just like that, everything changed. Aisha didn't ask questions. She didn't protest. She simply followed. Because what choice did she have? The woman led her through the halls of the palace, past the golden chandeliers, past the walls lined with paintings that probably cost more than an entire city block. But for the first time, Aisha wasn't paying attention to the wealth around her. She was paying attention to the warmth. Because this woman, whoever she was different. She didn't look at Aisha like she was filth. She didn't eye her with suspicion, with judgment. Number, she looked at her with something else, something Aisha barely recognized anymore: concern. They reached a room, spacious but inviting, a soft bed, a chair near the window, a warmth in the air that made Aisha's legs finally give out as she collapsed onto the mattress, her body surrendering to exhaustion. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself cry. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot and relentless. All the pain, all the fear, all the loneliness bursting free at once. The woman didn't say a word. She simply sat beside Aisha, placing a gentle hand over hers, a silent promise, a silent comfort. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Aisha didn't know anymore. She only knew she was safe, for now. And then the woman spoke. "My son," He is not an easy man. Aisha sniffled, looking up, confused. Your son? The woman smiled faintly. The man who lets you in. He is my son. Aisha's breath hitched. The millionaire, this cold, unreadable man, was her son? He doesn't trust easily, the woman continued. Life has made him hard, but I saw the way he looked at you, child. He may not have said it, but I know what he was thinking. And what was that? Aisha whispered. The woman's eyes softened. That he saw himself in you. Aisha's heart pounded. That couldn't be true. A man like him, rich, powerful, untouchable. How could he ever understand her pain? But then, as if summoned by her thoughts, he appeared at the door. His expression was still cold, still unreadable, but there was something different now, a hesitation, a crack in the armor. You can stay, he said. For now. Aisha blinked. Was this real? Was he actually? You'll work, he added quickly, as if trying to erase any idea of charity. I don't believe in handouts, but you won't go hungry. Aisha swallowed hard, emotions choking her. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, he muttered, turning away. Just rest. And just like that, the walls he had so carefully built around himself showed their first crack. Aisha had walked into this palace expecting rejection, expecting cruelty. But what she found was something far more complicated, because this man, the man who had everything, was also a man who, in some way, had lost something too. And whether he realized it or not, letting her in wasn't just saving her life. It might just save his too, but neither of them knew that yet, because this was just the beginning. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, everything began to change. Aisha was no longer just a stranger in a palace. She had a place, a purpose. The woman, the millionaire's mother, had taken her under her wing, guiding her, caring for her in a way no one ever had. And the man, the cold, unreadable millionaire who had once stood at his doorstep, ready to turn her away, he remained distant, guarded. But something was shifting. At first, he barely acknowledged her. He kept his interactions brief, speaking only when necessary. But Aisha noticed things. The way his eyes lingered a little longer when she spoke. The way he tensed when she winced in pain from the baby's kicks. The way his hands clenched when she absent-mindedly mentioned the hardships she had endured. He acted indifferent, but indifference doesn't come with clenched fists and long stares, does it? One night Aisha was sitting by the window, cradling her belly, lost in thought. She didn't hear him enter, didn't realize he was watching her until he spoke. When is it due? She startled, turning to face him. His voice was different this time, softer, less rigid. Soon, she murmured, her fingers tracing gentle circles over her stomach. Very soon. A beat of silence stretched between them. Then unexpectedly, he exhaled. A deep, heavy breath that carried something unspoken. You remind me of someone, he finally admitted. Aisha's brows furrowed. Who? He hesitated, then shook his head. No one. Liar. Aisha didn't push. She didn't have to, because she knew this man, this seemingly untouchable, invincible man, had cracks in his walls, and whether he liked it or not, she had slipped through them. The night her baby came, the house erupted in chaos, pain, panic. She screamed through contractions, gripping onto the sheets as the world blurred around her. The mother stayed by her side, whispering words of comfort. The house staff moved frantically, preparing for the birth. But he, the millionaire, he was nowhere to be found. Aisha should have expected it, should have known that a man like him, closed off, unemotional, wouldn't want to be involved. But still, it hurt. Until at the very last moment, just as her cries reached their peak, he appeared. He stood at the doorway, rigid, uncomfortable, as if battling with himself, And then, against every instinct, against whatever had kept him away before, he stepped forward. Minutes felt like eternity, but then, a cry, a tiny piercing wail that shattered the tension in the room. Her baby was here. Tears streamed down Aisha's face as she cradled the fragile, beautiful life in her arms. A son, a perfect, tiny son. And when she looked up, still breathless, she found him, standing frozen, staring at the child with something unreadable in his eyes. Aisha swallowed hard. Do you want to hold him? The millionaire flinched, as if the question itself had struck him. His jaw tightened, his hands flexed at his sides, and for a moment she thought he would walk away. But he didn't. He stepped closer, slowly, hesitantly, and then, with a hand that had probably signed billion-dollar deals, that had never trembled even in the face of power, he reached out and took the baby into his arms. Something shifted in that moment, a crack widening, a barrier crumbling. Because for the first time, maybe in years, the millionaire wasn't just a man of wealth, a man of status, a man of power. He was just a man, holding a newborn child, a child that wasn't his, but somehow felt like it was. And Aisha, she knew right then and there that she had changed him, just as much as he had changed her. And so, here we are, a woman who had nothing and a man who had everything, brought together by fate, by circumstance, by something no one could have predicted. But what happened next? Oh, that's a story for another time. Because here's the real question. What would you have done if a stranger knocked on your door, desperate, broken, in need? Would you have opened it, or would you have turned them away? Tell me in the comments, because kindness, it's rare. But the people who show it, they're the ones who change lives. And if this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't just the ones we listen to, but the ones we pass on. And who knows? Maybe one day you'll be the one standing at a door, or the one opening it. And when that moment comes, what choice will you make?